Welcome to
Great.
the NFT Talks Virtual Conference. We're day
Thanks
two. We had a
for
fantastic
having
day
me.
yesterday. And yes, no, thank you very, very much for coming. Um, just want to jump in really, and we can start having a great chat about NFT marketing and a bit about yourself.
Do
So
it.
it'll be great to
Yeah,
hear your backstory. So give us the highlights of Caitlin.
I will. So, about 6 years ago, I started a Web2 marketing agency. So, my background has always been, before that, always been in marketing, always been in strategy. And we've really decided and really honed in on SEO, digital marketing, or digital strategy, and launching. So, launching was a big part of this. And it I had a client come to me in May, so about a year ago, and say, hey, like I have this project that I want to launch. Can you help me launch it? Like, I know you don't do Web3 or NFTs, but like you should take a look at it. So I was like, okay, well, very familiar with it, because my husband, was in crypto. He was trying to get me into NFTs for a while. So I was familiar with it, and I was like, all right, like this is a sign that it's now time for me to take a look at it. We helped our client out. It was interesting because they were a brick and mortar weed shop. And so we launched it in a very Web2 way, blew it out of the water, just because like that's how they were set up. That was their, market, their target audience. But that's when I was like, okay, like I can do this. And I dove into it and I realized, oh my gosh, I've done this all wrong. Like, yeah, it worked for him, but this is totally different beast. So at that point, like I already decided, like, I love this. I'm going to make an NFT marketing just kind of arm of our agency. And then as I dove deeper into it and I had more and more people coming to me, and I started to learn more about just the intricacies and differences of Web3, I knew that I had to really create another agency. It was its own beast. So what I did was I pulled out the arm of the old agency and LLC'd our new agency at the end of 2021, in about October. So we did that. And once I did that and I set up all my socials, I mean, things just kind of started rocking and rolling really quickly. And it made me realize, a lot of people, and like, how my husband is getting in there was like, be the artist, be the artist. And once I actually was in there, I realized that so many people need support beyond just like creating art. Like they need support with lawyers who know the industry. They need support with marketing. They need support with therapists. And it really truly is a different beast. And so that's how I really jumped in. And once I kind of started doing that research and diving in, I just fell in love with it and found community. And that's just kind of what's, kept me around. And it's been life-changing for me.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So obviously, you found a few differences between Web 2 and Web 3. What do you think is sort of are there any couple of key differences that you've noticed?
Yeah, I think that with Instagram, there's like these perfect little grids, and there's so many people there just trying to like, they're just talking at people. And to me now it feels really lonely. Like I think people are feeling that, like they are going in, they're not really making real connections. They're seeing these pretty little boxes that they don't relate to anymore. And then you come over to, Web3 TikTok and Web3 Twitter, and you are in there talking back and forth with people. I know when I got into this space, so many people just reached out to me on DMs. This world is such a special place right now because it still is small, and connection is a huge thing. And that's priority versus showing up as a perfect human. And just talking at people. It's having discussions. It's, being able to debate with each other in a really healthy way, and showing up multidimensional versus, just, hey, this is my brand. This is how I'm going to show up. And it's so much better to show up as yourself, as multidimensional, as I like to do this and this and this, and my personality is this. And it's just really showing up as you are. the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and really connecting with people on all of those different sides of the coin, which I absolutely love. And I think the biggest thing that we need to look at as this space grows is really keeping that intact. Is, when people come on, making sure that you're reaching out to them, making sure that in these Twitter spaces, you are trying to connect on a deeper level with everybody in the room, inviting people up to Twitter, to the stage, to make sure that they have a voice and that you get to talk with them one-on-one.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that came out of the talks yesterday was all around community and how everyone's sort of helping each other, because we're not in that scarcity mindset. Maybe Web 2 is a bit more in that than Web 3. Everyone's sort of at that level playing field, and we're all trying to raise each other up. And
yes,
and I think
we're all learning together. It's just one big show, then we're all in it together.
Yeah, no, definitely. I did have a question around, for the sort of a purist, from a marketing 101 point of view, what do you think are the sort of essentials, the basics that someone needs to have in place if they're a one-on-one artist? We'll talk a little bit later about one-on-one versus 10K collections, but for your one-on-one artist, what are some of the basics that you recommend to people to have in place when they're
show
launching?
up and get started and be yourself, and share your journey. People love seeing how you're learning. They love learning along with you. And it could be really basic. It could be that you made this tiny little mistake that otherwise you would have just kind of gone through and fixed it and that was it. But no, get on there and document everything. People love seeing that. They love hearing that. And it helps, again, raise everybody up because you're teaching everyone else how to do it. I think that's a big thing, is just document your journey. Big things, little things that you might not think people care about, how you're feeling for the day, the mistake that you made, the little tiny win that you had today. Yeah. I think that is all, it comes together and it really drives your personal brand. It really helps other people. And it also gets the word out there. Know your audience really well as well. That's a big one, is that people come in and I can do this really well. And they just kind of, spew it out. But if I really, really encourage people to really sit down and figure out who is their target audience, who do they want to be a part of their collection, who do they want collecting from them, and really start following them, these type of people. You'll get somebody in mind. And if you do, follow them around. Are they in Twitter spaces? Are they asking certain questions? Is there something that they value? And you can kind of by following them just on Twitter and clicking that little bell button and getting alerts when they tweet, you can learn a lot about a person on Twitter and what they're doing. If you just kind of take a look or ask them questions, reach out to them and get a little bit more information. And I think that is, if you can really hone in on what is it that they are missing in the Web3 space, or what is it that they need, I think that will be really helpful for when you are campaigning for yourself and how you show up. Trying to think if there's anything else. That's the big one that I see, is just know your audience really well, get into Twitter spaces and just start documenting yourself. And don't forget to sell. That's a big thing, is that there's two types of people: the people that just go all in and selling and you have no idea who they are as a person. And there's the people who just you love them, but you have no idea what they're selling. What they're minting. So don't forget to shout it from the rooftops that you are an artist and this is what you're creating and it's for sale.
Yeah. And I think I'm guilty of a few of those, because especially with this conference, you're on TikTok and it's come to our conference. We've got these great speakers, and I've been quite focused on that, and I probably haven't done many. I haven't been out there too much about, hey, don't forget about me, Andy, the person who's also an artist, and here's some of my mistakes. That sort of dropped off a little bit. I did a lot of that in the beginning, but
well, go get your rest next week. Yeah, take the week off and then come back strong.
No, exactly. And how do you feel? Because most of us here are all on TikTok, and how do you feel? Yeah. I feel that TikTok allows you to probably document yourself, that authentic self. What's your thoughts on that?
I love
You,
TikTok so much, and I think it's totally underutilized in the Web3 world. But we've seen it now, like we're all on there and we've created our own connections. And I personally feel like when I show up in a Twitter space with my TikTok friends, it's just a better conversation because we've seen each other's faces. We hear each other's documentations of the day. And, it is depending on who you are, I guess, but I think personally, it's a lot easier for myself and anyone else who feels comfortable on a camera to document and to show what they're working on and to just show their art in general. I think it's like the Zoom conference. I feel like there's just an added level of connection when you see somebody's face, when you see somebody's expressions versus just a voice on the other side of on Twitter Spaces. So it's just that added level of connection that you get.
Yeah, and so yesterday was quite interesting because I, in the backstage area, I spoke to Thea from Birds of the USA for the first time.
Love her.
And yeah, she's awesome. She was on with her brother Ben, and it was really interesting because that was the first time I'd actually spoken to her. But because we have a connection on TikTok, and she's seen me on there, and I've seen her, then yeah, you sort of like old friends reconnecting. It wasn't really nerve-wracking or anything like that because you sort of know each other. So
yes,
yeah, I find that's one benefit that I've definitely found with using TikTok and following other creators.
And I was at San Diego, the conference a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago at this point, but it's like, I saw all the TikTok people and I was like, oh my gosh, hello. And then everybody else from Twitter, I had no idea because I've never seen a picture of them. I've only seen their PFP, but they're coming up to me because they knew, they've seen my face. So it was really fun too, to see people that I actually knew who they were in real life as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, you can make those connections, which are so important in this space.
Yeah.
Cool. What else do I have? I wanted to just touch on a little bit now around brand building. And I guess that comes into a couple of different ways because you've got building your personal brand, which is I guess getting out there and putting your authentic self. But you've also got building I guess if you're building an NFT line, then you might be building that brand. Did you just want to touch a little bit about brand building and how you see that maybe evolving in NFTs? Because I think we're really at the beginning, so it'd be cool to just understand what your thoughts are on that.
So there definitely is a difference between your really large collections versus your one-on-one. And I think as a one-on-one artist, it is an extension of yourself. And it is for brand building in that sense. It's kind of twofold, and you can do it together. It's you as the artist, it's you as the human. And then the art comes into this is a part of your story. It's an extension of yourself. So I love the one-on-one artists or the little tiny collections that launch and maybe be slightly different because they each kind of represent a chapter of their lives. And so me personally, I feel so connected to artists who kind of just tell the reasoning and their why behind their art and the story behind each piece. I think it really helps you connect on a deeper level. Beyond them, it gets into their head of what they were thinking as, their emotions were pouring out into whatever it is that they were creating. I think it's really special. And again, especially in the TikTok world, when you do become friends, I will tell you that probably 80% of the people that I talk to, they want to buy from their friends. They want to help support their friends, and they want to get behind something that they can relate to, that they can see themselves in. So, in that sense, that kind of is filtering into the larger collection is how can you show up if this is you? How can you create a brand that people can see themselves in? So there's one like the 90s babe collection, people just buy it because they're like, oh my God, the 90s. I totally resonate with that. If that's them, if you're a woman in the 90s, you're just or just a person in the 90s, you're like, that's hilarious. I totally remember those butterfly clips. It's just little things like that. And again, why it's so important just to, talk about the little things is that there's something in there that people relate to. Coinbase has done a really good job they have a face of their brand, on TikTok, and they specifically reach out to small artists and just comment on their videos. Actually, I haven't seen them do that in a while, but when they first came in, they were doing that and people were falling in love with Coinbase because they had a person come in and basically not just talk to them, but go in and like actually interact with what they were doing and help support and lift them up.
Yeah, Coinbase is a very interesting sort of, I guess, next evolution. Maybe, I'm not sure. It's still very Web 2. It's a marketplace, so they've got all control. Yeah. But it's interesting to see what they're doing because they're trying to build a bit of community by having the ability to comment on NFTs and those sorts of things in their new platform.
Yeah.
But also, I guess, reach out to the masses, because one of the complicated things with the NFTs is that you normally have to buy it with crypto, and then crypto you start getting into all sorts of complicated, I need to get from ETH to Polygon and now it needs to be wrapped, and whereas they're offering just to you can just bring your credit card, and if you like that NFT, buy it with a credit card.
Yeah. And again, I think that's really knowing who your audience is and where you want it to go, and your end goal and your purpose too. Like there's so many like different things you need to think about that when it comes to deciding on things like that. Like, are you going to do crypto? Are you going to do crypto and, fiat, all those things?
So I guess that segues into a question I've got around for an artist deciding, where do you put your artwork from I guess we've put your marketing cap on. Is there a blockchain that you would say this one's easier to market to, or you could sell it more because of the ease of use or the onboarding? Is there anything that you would recommend to anyone?
From a marketing standpoint, again, I would say like, where is your audience at? And also what's your brand? If you're a brand touting, like green living and things like this, you want to find something that aligns with your brand that is known as a carbon neutral or carbon negative blockchain. So that's something to think about. In general, I think if you're talking to the people who are already onboarded, the majority of them just have an easy time with OpenSea, with Ether on there. It's just like, that's kind of like what they do. That's where they are. So that's really easy. I think the biggest thing that I see in regards to that is doing something that takes up the least amount of has the least amount of steps involved. The drop off of conversions on these platforms is huge, bigger than any other drop off I've ever seen. It can be up to 80% that people try to go mint and they have a tough time and they stop minting. So, it's something, and what I've seen, like, so do you, if you're on OpenSea, do you do wrapped ETH or do you do ETH, and granted, you have to take into consideration, what you're spending, and all of that, but typically one has more steps, but you can mitigate that. Like if it's something that you are really passionate about, like I really want, to use Matic or something else that that your audience is going to have to kind of take that extra step. That's okay. You just really need to handhold them along the way. And so I always recommend, first step, pick something that is going to take the least amount of effort for your people to purchase, because every single step creates another drop off of people. And if you are going to handhold along the way, that's great. Make sure it is on your website. Make sure it is in video format of you showing them. Make sure it is in writing format. Make sure it is in like just talking format. Make sure you talk about it all day, every day. Make sure that your DMs are open for any questions that people need help with in regards to minting. I think that's going to help really create more sales and help the conversions. But that's the biggest issue for anyone trying to get an NFT is actually go through those steps and get it into their wallet.
Yeah. And so the other day I actually minted the Sherwood project, and I think they did a fantastic job at this because they offered both fiat, so you could pay with credit card, or you could pay with Polygon, and so it was so simple because you had a choice. First off, and then they did have that support there. So they had their Discord where it was, if you've got any problems, come to our Discord and we'll help you out. And Luke, who's obviously on TikTok quite a bit, he sort of had done a number of videos around, here's how you do it, and those steps that you do. So I think Sherwood did a good job.
Yeah, I need to look more into them, but I've been watching them and I've really liked what they've been doing. I'm trying to think what else about onboarding, or not onboarding, but just like conversions. I think it's that. I think it's just really hand holding people and making sure that you have gone through the process yourself. Maybe
Yeah,
it's you have brought on an inner circle of people to do it from all different browsers, all different banks, all these little pieces. They all have different rules and it's all kind of slightly different processes, especially
yeah.
if you have to fill your wallet for it.
And I think another point that you made before was just, back to knowing your audience. So are they someone who's already onboarded into crypto and know what they're doing, or is it someone who's brand new to NFTs and just starting their journey
Yeah.
and need a little bit more assistance and help and having that
Yes.
available?
Test.
Test, yeah, yeah. It's the number of people who've they've launched their minting site and then they mustn't have tested properly. Something small has gone
Mhm.
wrong, and that's all it takes to, as you said, that big drop off of people. They're like,
Yeah.
no, too hard, I'm out of here, or they jump to, oh, it's a scam. Something's not working. It's a scam. I'm
Yes.
being scammed. So, there's some very big projects. I mean, this is more in the 10,000 space, but like, I know, I think like Tribex and there's one called Sharma's, a number of these big projects which had huge backings behind them, and they
Mhm.
failed because they had some technical issues at the beginning and they just couldn't get that trust back. I think trust is probably maybe a big one to talk about, since
Yeah. Yeah.
one of one artists, I guess the most of them are doxed. Is there anything around trust in marketing, or was that?
It's everything. And I think it more and more it's going to be important as the years go on because you're seeing famous people come in and they're rugging people. You're starting to see a bunch of hype promoters come in and all of their projects start, failing. All these collections start being rug pulls. So I think, and obviously Web3 doesn't always get the best, rep when
Yeah,
there's new people coming in or people on the outside. So it's really taking that into account and knowing that people are coming in, they may or may not be coming in with already like a bad taste in their mouth or just being very weary. Everybody knows somebody that's gotten scammed in the space or they themselves have gotten scammed. So really building that trust is everything. And I think more and more we're going to start seeing collections that have to be doxed. Or they're going to have to do a really, really, really good job of somehow creating that trust and taking a lot longer time frame to really build that trust up. Um, and even then, like, I think for me, it's especially in this bear market, a lot of things aren't going to sell out right away. And the biggest thing that I look at, and I think that other people need to start looking at too, and are starting to look at is, all right, they didn't sell out. Now what are they doing? Did they stop talking in their Discord? Did they go away? Or are they still hustling? Like, are they still out there showing up every day on TikTok and Twitter? Are they still in spaces? Are they still speaking no matter, even though that they didn't fully sell out yet? And I think it's really just all through the points of like, how is it that you show up when people are first meeting you? Like when somebody doesn't know you, like what can you say to get them to be like, hey, I'm me, like come follow me and follow my journey. Usually that's what we talked about is the brand building and being yourself. It's through the conversions when you are like, my DMs are open. Let me help you mint. If you have questions, let me help you mint. Here's a video of my face showing you how to mint. And then it's, the after side of things where you don't want your floor price to go beyond your mint or go below your mint price if you're still minting. It's you showing up and creating that value in your community.
yeah, no, that's yeah, no, I fully agree with that. um, cool. So I think I did have a question. Now it escapes my 4 o'clock in the morning mind.
Oh my
Here we
gosh.
go. That's okay. I was going to go into so you just talked about I guess some things that people can do to you know avoid mistakes. I guess around
Yeah.
making sure you do these things. Um, what what do you see are the kind of the biggest mistakes that people either just artists or projects do, which make their what are the biggest mistakes they make, which makes their projects fail or not mint out? Or
there's a few things, and a few we've already talked about, but that's the one of just coming in with utility because they can do it versus what their audience really wants.
yeah,
Then there is not talking about enough about what they're selling and what they're minting. I would talk, if you're showing up every day and you're providing value, then you have earned the right to show up every day and also sell. It doesn't need to be weird or scammy. It can just be like, hey, look at this. Like, look, this is the story behind this. Oh, by the way, this is up on OpenSea. Like, this is where you can find that. And then there was one more that I'm like trying to think. I'm like, dang it, what was it? I had it in my head. I might have to come back to that, but
that's okay. We've had in the chat here, Amy, Velvet Crab Visual. Hey, Amy.
Hi.
And she's sort of commented saying, yeah, you're truly starting a business, and using NFTs to crowdsource funding, and how can you show the value to your holders over time and keep them engaged for the long haul? I guess that's a bit of a question. This space is train people for hype and sell. So I guess her question here is, how do you keep people engaged for that long haul? And I think just to add to that, this is what I see people don't make the connection that you are starting a business, and it's not just let's launch and we get our money and let's walk away now. That's called a rug pull. So it's a long-term commitment. Maybe is your business going to be there for 10 years, 20 years? How are you looking at it? What are your thoughts on that?
So, storytelling. I mean, storytelling is huge. If you can storytell, I think that is really great for people bringing into your world and connecting with them. I think that's a big one. For keeping engaged in the long haul, again, it's going to depend on your audience, but what can you do to surprise or delight them? Like, what can you do to give back to them? What can you do to offer them? Like, is there an incentive for them to hold? And again, the storytelling comes back to connecting. Maybe just want to hold because they really just like you and they love being a part of your community. So what can you do every day to enrich your community in a way that they want, in a way that they need? How can you support? I'm all about hype, but from within the community. So I can give, myself as an example. Like right now I'm launching my own project. So this is kind of it's been a little bit quieter, but in my Discord every month, I have a free masterclass and I hype people. I get people excited. And on the tail end of that, I have a paid program. And in that paid program, I'm always like, hey, like if you want to get in for free, an option to get in for free, like if you want to, maybe go into a drawing and get a free spot, like tweet this out, and then it's my own community helping hype and like keep it going. And they every month get a free training, and they every month get the option to either purchase to get into a paid masterclass or retweet and have the option to go into a drawing to get that for free. So it's like the little things like that, like that's my personal like flow of things. And you can do it differently depending on what you're offering and what you can offer. But those are just like little things, or, maybe it's just like a little mini airdrop every month that you get to pick one person or something just to keep people engaged. But again, once you do these things, it's a business. You don't just do it. Like you want to PR what you are doing. You want to make sure that you are announcing and documenting everything that you're doing in your Discord and on your Discord. Like you want to get the people inside your community really excited, but you can also take that off and be like, hey, this is what happened in our Discord today. Like, this is what somebody said, or like, this is what I'm doing with my holders, just documenting it everywhere. So people are excited and they want to join your community and they want to stay in your community.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of words you touched on, that surprise and delight. I think that's sort of really one of the key things to it, isn't it? Just you keep people engaged by that in the long term by surprising and delighting them. I think that's great.
Yeah. Making them fall in love with you.
yeah. Amy said, maybe we need to be better storytellers. And I think it's one of the lessons I'm taking away from that is I've probably been doing less of that and need to be doing that. And I definitely haven't been surprising and delighting my holders, because you sort of, I guess my challenge, which would be the similar to a lot of people who are creators, is that this is our hobbies, part-time job, side hustle, and so you've got family and you've got your full-time job and all those sort of things that you're doing. So it's a time allocation. And Crypto Drew asks a question around, which sort of comes into this. How do you do you have any tips for great time management around ensuring that you can continue to engage with your audience and surprise and delight them?
Yeah. So I always go back to the power of one. And here I'm actually, this is going to be, sorry, you opened up like a Pandora's box.
Okay.
So this might be a really long-winded answer, but I think it's going to be really helpful for people. So I always do my marketing, and this is how I create my marketing plans for anybody, is the 4 C's. And this is something I just kind of talked about. I've created, it's catch, connect, close, and continue. So catch is driving awareness. What's the one thing that you can do to show up today just to be like, hey, I'm here, I'm new? Is it, and even like, it doesn't even have to be every single day. But is it, is it one video, maybe every other day on TikTok? Is it just one tweet on Twitter? Is it like one Twitter space that you go into once a week? So think about the power of one and start there. For driving awareness, that's one. For connecting, that's getting up on stage in that Twitter space and telling your story. Closing, it's that, that one tweet a day that's like, hey, by the way, this is my art, like go and buy it, and then, continuing is the 4th C, which is basically like what happens after you sell, what happens after your community is already engaged and already a part of your life. Like, what's something that you can do for them? Maybe it's honestly just showing up in their DMs and be like, hey, I'm thinking about you. Like, how are you doing? How can I support you? Maybe it is like, one time a month, you're going to do, a surprise drop to somebody. And it's really figuring out what you have the capacity for and starting. I would do one in each of those buckets. And it could be once a week, once a month, depending again on what your capacity is, starting there. And once you really get into a flow, you'll see that you'll be able to add on a little bit to that. And yes, it might be the long route and it might take a while, but starting there and really getting solid on that one thing that you're going to do until you're like, okay, like I can do this. Like it's my job. Like it's just the habit now that I've formed. I can add on to that because you will start to get to the flow and it will start becoming second nature to you where you can add on more stuff. So start with that and then like add from there and just know that, yeah, the 4 C's, like those are the 4 C's. And just know like there is a progression of people. You can't just go into a Twitter space and be like, this is what I'm selling. You have to take them through the awareness of you. You have to connect with them. You have to, then you can close a deal and sell them. And then you should be continuing the conversation with them afterwards. Catch, connect, close, and continue. Right. Yeah. Sorry. I kind of went off on a rampage.
Everyone write that down.
Catch, driving awareness, connect, building relationships, closing, which is selling or launching, or both, depending on what your plan is. And then continuing is developing that deeper connection, doing things that can keep your floor price up.
Well, that's really powerful. Thank you for that. I think everyone would take away quite a lot from that. That's gold. Thank you. Yeah. You touched a bit on that kind of the social media side of things. You jump on and you do a tweet to sort of say, oh, don't forget to check out my collection, or doing that close part. I know Twitter is sort of becoming, especially with Spaces, is becoming quite a big platform for NFTs, and a lot of us here are all from TikTok. But how would you use social media to best, I guess, build that audience and do those 4 C's? What's your advice on that? Because I think, social media by itself is another big Pandora's box, which can get quite confusing because there's so many options out there.
Well, first and foremost, find your people from TikTok on Twitter. Most of us are on Twitter too. Start following them and start getting into spaces where they are showing up. I think that most people do a good job of retweeting the room, of, scheduling out these spaces that they're part of. And that's kind of like the door in, I think, especially if you don't want to just go into a random Twitter space where you don't know anybody, is start following the people that you know on TikTok and sign up for their alerts, see what, whenever they go live, like that's an option and you can hop in there. Again, like you guys were talking about before earlier, you and Sean, is that like just reach out and like, collaborate with people. Like you can easily message somebody and be like, hey, I love what you're doing. I think that this is where our synergies are. This is my idea for a Twitter space. Like, would you be interested in just like co-hosting a Twitter space next week? Like, what's the best time for you? And I will say the two things that have helped me grow on social media, on Twitter specifically, I should say, is I figured out what people wanted, and it was a marketing guide. And that's when I started, and I created this huge marketing guide of all the information that you could ever, want in there. And I pinned it. And that was one thing that kind of like caught on fire, and they retweeted it because people wanted that. They needed that at that time. And so that kind of like jump started and like my growth there. But with that pinned tweet, like I would go into Twitter spaces and I would introduce myself. And then usually you have the option to pin something to the top of the room. I would pin that, or I would talk about it. And then people would come and see that, and they would click on it. They would go to my website. They would follow me on Twitter. So it's kind of twofold, is, showing up and being a name that people trust and giving them something that, will help them want more. And I know that's hard for an artist. Like what is it that they want? Yeah. I mean, it can honestly just be your story too. It could be a story that somebody resonates with. It could just be a pinned art piece and your story behind that. And people become emotionally connected to these pieces of art that you're creating. Maybe you have a utility on this piece, and you're just kind of giving a sneak peek into like what that utility can be, and you're giving them a taste of what they can get from you, that you can pin that. So I'm giving my examples, but I realize that I'm kind of in a different boat than most artists. So I'm trying, but there are ways. And there are creative ways to get in there and to, make it your own. And I think creativity actually is what's going to set people apart, especially moving forward in this space.
Yeah, and I had the pleasure yesterday to talk to Lisa Karma, and Lisa was talking about as an artist how vulnerable she was, sort of putting her art out there. But once she did that, and I think she does, maybe she's got one of hers pinned to her Twitter. It really resonates with people and connects, and I guess that's that's a way to grow that following from a artist's point of view. It's quite quite similar to the Web 2 lead magnet, really, isn't it? It's kind of drawing people, giving them something so that you can connect with them.
Yeah, it is in a way, or it can be, at least, but instead of like getting them on an email list and, taking their information, it's just kind of like, hey, come hang out with me. This is what I'm about.
Cool. Yeah, no, exactly. I wanted to touch on now just a bit about your new project that you're coming out with, and it sounds pretty exciting from the couple of TikToks that that I've looked at. Could you go over that? And I mean, obviously really keen to sort of understand obviously the woman in Web3 aspect of it, and how you're driving that. So
this is very interesting. Yeah. So it's the calibration room, and it is a really safe space of networking and connecting for women of Web3. Very inclusive. So non-binary, neurodivergent, like all types of women are obviously invited. So this is a space where people can come together. There's different like little prongs of it, and it's all on the website, calibrationroom.io, if you want to get more details. But we have larger networking spaces once a month. And then they have like the smaller little working pods where you can come and you can ask the questions that you don't feel comfortable asking on Twitter, or you don't even know who to go to ask, or even, in this space now, for me personally, I have Googled questions and I'm like, that is not the answer. Like there are no answers out there, so this is the space where you can come and you can do that. Or you're working on a project and you're like, hey, my floor price is dropping. What can I do? Or, hey, I'm launching and holy crap, like there's so much like mindset issues that I'm working through. So it's basically that. So it's not the onboarding. It's not teaching you how to make a wallet. It's like you are onboarded and you are either creating in the space or you want to create in the space. So it's really a safe space for that. It's more of like we also have like a little higher education piece. So if you want to come in and you want to learn how to create assets that then you can sell to larger companies, or, maybe it's, you want to learn 3D art. So it's more of like a little bit of a more advanced that we're like, hey, I would love to know about that. Maybe it's like the basics of how to build a smart contract, or like, maybe it's a take through of these are the different platforms that you can build smart contracts on. So it's a higher level conversation. It's the support that you can get on a deeper level than where you can get through just in like Twitter DMs or Twitter spaces and things like that. And it's where you really connect and, create your little like friend group and your besties and your Web3 helpers. But it also, so the point of it is, one, connection, like that's a huge thing, connecting and growing together and lifting each other up. The second part of it is generating wealth. And this is kind of coming in my entrepreneur side. Yeah. So from my background, it is building businesses, it is creating assets, and it's selling assets. And this is actually important because it gets into how I'm marketing this. So again, another Pandora's box. So I'll try to be fast, but
take your time. That's fine.
So another part of this is wealth generation. And so for me, you will not see anybody on the outside promoting this. Yes, through retweets, things like that, but nobody is being paid. I'm not going to large communities and saying like, hey, can I pay you? Or can I switch you for some NFTs to promote this? It is only coming from the inside. So when somebody comes on, they automatically not automatically, because it is very manual right now, because it's Web3 structures don't exist. They get a code and they can give it to people who they want to see in the space, and their people get a percentage off and they get a percentage kickback. So right then and there, they can make their investment back. Then we have the opportunity, and this is something that I can't talk a lot about, but I've been in talks with people, and it is happening, that we are creating assets. And I can say this, that, obviously from what I'm building, there's not Web3 infrastructure. There's no systems in place to help me get this forward. So we're creating this, and whatever we create will be created with investors, with the people who come in and are the founding members. And we're going to be creating the backend infrastructures that we are then going to be able to sell to other companies. So this is how most people in general make wealth. It's not through their business. It's not through their jobs. It is taking the cash flow that they get, creating something and selling it off, purchasing it. So that is kind of like the aspect of what's going on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about, that I don't market, because it's one of those things that's like very internal to the founding members. Yeah. But it's a huge way that you can create wealth within this space. And I am making an NFT. So you will see like the founding members will get an NFT, and that is their access to lifetime access into the group, as well as becoming a part of profit sharing for whatever assets we create that we can sell. And just inherently, that's going to drive the NFT price up as well. So it's kind of like the back end, like you have this group, the support. But for me personally, like this is what I'm doing, because this has never happened before in Web3. It is all very Web2. If you go to my website, it's Web2. Yeah. Everything, like I ask for your email, we'll be emailing and figuring out community. It maybe through Discord, maybe through somewhere else. But again, it's very Web2 because the structures aren't in place. And because they aren't in place, I can't go out there and have a 10K launch because it is very manual for me. So what I'm doing is we are launching first, the NFT comes second. But right away, I'm taking those funds and I'm kind of, creating and helping create assets that are going to become Web3. So it's kind of like long and intricate. And if you aren't like totally into this world, like it is confusing, but that is the other side that I don't totally market, and why, from my standpoint, I have been doing this very, like, it's going to be a slow mint, like under the radar, and everything that is marketing is coming from the inside out. Because of like all these places just like aren't in place, which is very different than just like your regular collection or your regular launch or, your 10K generative art pieces. Like it's all that all has a Web3 structure. What I'm doing, it does not have a Web3 structure yet, but is very exciting. because we now have the opportunity for our founding members to come in and to partake in something in building this structure together. So.
Wow, that's yep.
Did that make sense? Like, did I know I'm like, it did.
The only bit which would be good, and maybe it's just because my brain's still, it's 5 o'clock.
I just wrote a post about this. So if you're more like about like copy and like reading, I just wrote a post about it on Twitter, and some of this is on my website, not all of it, but yeah.
When you say assets, what could give an example of that?
Yeah. So it can be anything. Assets can be anything. It can be a recipe. It can be infrastructure that you've created. It can be a certain trademark, so it's not like NFTs. It's more of just like assets of this business. It can be a token that you create in your company. So it's all like more of like the business side of things that you can that can help other companies or other projects in the space. And that they could purchase from you, or somebody can come in and just be like, I want to buy you out. Like, I want this technology that you've created.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had Alan Rees on yesterday as our, I guess, keynote. And one of the key points out of his was that with Web3, there is no blueprint, there is no roadmap. So we're the ones creating and building it. And I think you've just kind of echoed that by saying there's nothing out there, we have to build it ourselves. So
yes, we're just literally building. Like, yes, like I literally am doing this piece by piece, and it is so freaking manual because nothing exists yet. And like, I think actually a huge part of marketing too is energy and what you have the capacity to hold. And if I were to have 10,000 people come in right now, I would die. Like right now I'm creating codes, like me and my team are creating codes. Like I have help, but it's still like by hand, and like giving them out to our community. Like I have to sit down and write a huge email to all my founding members tonight to be like, hey, this is what's going on. This is where we're at. Like, keep your eyes peeled for codes, because right now people are just putting their trust in me, which I so appreciate. But yeah, we're building, which is really exciting.
That is really exciting. We've had in the comments, we've got Raina, I think how you pronounce it, just saying that she checked out your website and she said it was amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's been my baby, my like total like everything else has dropped to the wayside because like this is my thing right now that I'm just so in love with. And I'm also creating the art for it. I don't know if I mentioned that, but like I am the artist of also this piece. So it's also like really important for me as a marketer to come in there and go through the steps of the people I'm helping. So that's like one of the reasons why I've also decided to do this very manually and do it myself.
Yeah, no, learn by doing. That's great. So we've got Mick was asking, do we have a link? So that's your website. What was the website link again? So we can.
Yeah, I will put it here.
Cool.
Calibrationroom.io, not collaboration, because people get confused. It's calibration room. So you're coming and you're calibrating to, the highest good for all. You're calibrating to like your highest skills, your highest potentiality. So
cool. And Amy asks, do the members help build the assets, or is
they can? And it depends like on who's in the community. So right now I know exactly what I'm looking for funding are. We are going out right now and searching for funding. So if somebody pops into my community that has the skills to build this out, then yes. Once that project is done and we get funding for that and create that, we'll move on to the next one. And then that's when the community can come in and help me decide what's next and who wants to help build it. So first part, it's a little bit more, like maybe not. The second part is definitely like, yes, like community members, like, what do you want to do next? Like, what do you want to build? What do you want to sell?
That's cool. So I've got one last question, and then I think there's a couple of questions in the Q&A. So I guess it's on the theme of you're building this now. We're all very early, I think.
I know.
So where do you see NFTs going in the next kind of 5 years or 10 years? I think all of us can see that there's a future here for NFTs in one way or another.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the kind of future 5 years time, maybe 10 years time?
I think a lot of who shows up as a human, and I think it's, again, getting back to that brand building, whether it's for 10K collections or not, it's really somebody wants to be a part of another human being. It's a part of something that's bigger than them. So people right now, even then it goes beyond brands. Like people don't want to connect with brands. I think they want to connect with something bigger than themselves. And we're starting to see that. And I think that's going to play out in a bigger way as we, go down this road together. And another thing that I've been seeing that I think is, it's going to still happen, but I think the people who are going to be really successful are the ones who think totally differently than what everyone else is doing. What we're seeing is that like, oh, hey, this 10K collection, sold out. So now everyone's doing a 10K collection. And you kind of like see the flow of people following. Yeah. Or you're like, oh, there's this utility of onboarding. And then you kind of see the people following that way. And granted, I think onboarding is going to be a very important utility. I think building is happening faster than people are onboarding or getting onboarded. So I know, like, I'm just, that was just an example, but like, that is still a very good utility. But you're starting to see that like somebody gets creative or somebody does something differently. So then you see like the shift of people going that way. And how I like to do it is like, okay, everyone's doing it that way. Like, how can I do it differently? So everyone's buying and trying to get people to hype up for them. Okay, how can I do it differently? How can I get my community to do it for me? Versus like paying an outsider who isn't really benefiting, and I personally don't know, and they don't know my service. So just going out there and thinking, okay, this is what everyone's doing. How can I do this differently? Like, or is there a utility in, that's never been done before? Like, just let your mind be expanded and let your mind play. And I think that's going to be really important coming up.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And the hard thing though is, how do you do those things differently and be that leader instead of a follower? But yes, I think that's awesome. So I'll just jump to questions. I think we answered Crypto Drew's one. We've got NFT Bear on the line as well. I think you might have touched on this already in the start, but he just asks, how did you go from marketing, so I guess more your Web2, to NFT marketing?
Yeah. Okay. So partner who's always been into crypto, loving it, being like, be an NFT artist. And me being like, okay, like I'll look into it. And then having an actual client come in and just be like, this is what I need. Like, hey, will you help me? And me just being curious. And so if you didn't get the story from before, I have a Web2 agency. I had a Web2 client come to me who wanted to get into NFTs, and also a friend. And they knew that I had no idea what I was doing, but I launch, and launching is my bread and butter. And like launch plans. So they came to me like, hey, would you be willing to do this? And we did it very Web2 way. But that's how I got my feet in. And that's how I started to do a lot more research. And, once you do the research, I feel like you start to build a community and you start to really see the magic of Web3. And that's kind of what got me in there and stuck in there and wanting to, create my own NFT world, my own Web3 world. And I started off like there was a Web3 arm of our Web2 agency. And the farther it went down, I just realized that it needed to be a beast of its own, just because for different reasons, the people that you hire need to be completely different. So I realized that there's just a whole different like type of thing that I need to do. The marketing is completely different. Where I was at, on social media was very different. So I have 2 social accounts for everything, for all my businesses. And that was and I would usually don't recommend that for people, but like for me and where I was at in this company and just the world in general right now, like I needed it to be that way. And I just fell in love with it. I decided it needed to be its own beast. And again, like having a marketing company, it's going back to like, okay, like what are some assets that I can sell to generate wealth? So it's beyond just like, hey, I'm going to have this job over here. We're going to throw in these arms. It's like, no, like what can I pull out to create its own sellable asset? So now I have 2 sellable assets as a business owner. And this is getting more into like exiting and like, business ownership and wealth generation. But now, like I have the 2 marketing agencies, and now I have the calibration room, which will never, I don't think ever, I will never sell it. But the assets that we create in the calibration room will be sold and can be sold. So.
Yeah. And I guess on that wealth generation side of things, creating those assets, whether it be a software as a service or something like that you create, I mean that's got huge potential.
Yeah, it's just thinking bigger. And that's what the calibration room is all about, is like how can you get into the room and have a safe space where you can think bigger, where you can throw any idea out and everyone's like cheering you on. I was in this networking group and it was like, it killed me. And it was Web 2. I was not yet into NFT marketing. And I was just like, I just know that there's something else out there. Like, what else can I do? Like, I want to do something else. And I threw in an idea. And these were all like, older women, I think burned out from Web 2. And they're like,
Yeah.
I cannot relate with you at all. Like, I just want to sell off my business and like go somewhere and like never work again. And me, I'm like, no, I'm still creating. Like, I still have like so much in there, but it was like so like deflating. And I quit like that day. I was like, screw you. Like, I don't want to be around you people. Like, it was like negative energy, like, tearing down ideas or just being like, I just don't relate to anybody who's like thinking bigger or wants to create stuff and wants to be inspirational. And so that's a big reason why the calibration room, like I feel really, really attached to it and creating a space where people can come think bigger and just bring whatever ideas they have and get support with that.
That's excellent. I think it's kind of interesting. So I guess from your NFT marketing arm, I haven't seen many other pure NFT marketing agencies. Are there many out there? Like, do you have much competition or?
Yes, there are marketers out there and there are big companies. There's a lot of promoters out there. There's a lot of agencies out there for like the big, like you pay us a ton of money. And we'll do everything for you. And we actually kind of started out that way a little bit. And I quickly niched down to, and actually this happened a few weeks ago, that I only do marketing and launch plans and consulting, because the person who I want to help is the person who wants to do it themselves, who wants to show up in Twitter spaces. They just need the tools to do it. And they want like a specific, like step-by-step plan, which then it, becomes more cost effective. Still an investment, but more cost effective than spending thousands of dollars every month to have somebody do it for you. But it's, it's again, an asset that they create, and it becomes their asset that they can follow. And that, if they are a company or if they, at some point do create something and they use this plan, like that marketing plan becomes an asset that increases the value of their business or the value of their collection.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't believe an hour's flown by just like that. So we're nearly at the end. I guess to wrap up.
Like, I mean, is the sun rising yet where you are?
No, it's just on 5:30, so it's still dark outside, but that's okay. So where can people find you, Caitlin? Obviously, we've got the calibration room there, but what about your other socials? Where can people come to find you and get more information?
NFT Caitlin everywhere. So I'm on Twitter and TikTok. And then, from there you can find like a few different links to websites and things like that. But NFT Caitlin.
Excellent. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning, or this afternoon for you, I guess. So thank you for being part of the NFT Talks Virtual Conference. And we'll wrap it up there. And thanks everyone for joining. I hope you've got a lot of value out of that. I definitely did personally. So I've got some takeaways to go and start working on myself. So thanks very much, Caitlin. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for being here. Can I take like a screen grab really quickly of like our faces? Yeah. Sure. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thanks everybody. Awesome. It was so fun. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Bye. Take care. See you later.